Hey, everybody. I know you thought we were done for the year, but we're not. We got one more thing for you. Welcome to Random Chatter. We are doing a special episode, not numbered, not part of our normal content, but kind of related to our normal content. We are going to go over our picks for the best of 2020. I know that this year has been just a cluster of nonsense, from brain-eating amoeba to caterpillars, the poisonous caterpillars in Virginia, to like just weird things all over the world, in addition to COVID, in addition to hurricanes, snowstorms, fires,
murder
hornets, like just it's been of biblical proportions this year, but
major cyber attacks.
Yeah. It's like it's almost like it's a bingo game where we have too many winners. It's hitting
I keep flashing back to that apology that Belushi does in the Blues Brothers. He's going on and on. Locust, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's been just an absolutely crazy year, but there have been some good things, believe it or not. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. This is going to post right at the end of 2020. You're probably not going to watch it or listen to it until after the new year, and that's okay. Look at it as a way to think back on 2020 and realize that there were some good things that came out of this year, even if not many. But there were some good things. And I think it's important to remember that the bad times are not going to last forever. And even during those times, there are some good things we can take away from it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over our own personal picks for this year. And why don't we break it down rather than having one person go and then another person? We're going to break it down by category. We're going to cover movies. We're going to cover TV shows. We've got some documentaries. We'll separate those out. And we've got animated stuff. And then also like maybe books, video games. If you guys have anything you guys want to cover, we'll throw that in too. Sure. So without further ado, let's get going. Lou, why don't you tell us what movies you have seen in 2020 that you would recommend? I know that of all of the things that we have on the list, movies have been the most scarce, right?
They certainly have.
Yeah.
I was trying to think back to what was great, what kind of stood out to me, and it was an interesting journey of what we've been through this year and what we saw or didn't see. I'm trying to see if I have anything else in my notes that I didn't put in our show notes. But so what I have listed on here is I Am Mother. Oh. We talked about that on Movie Chatter. I thought that was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. That was on Netflix.
Tell people about it a little bit. Because I know we have talked about it on different everything we've talked about here. We've talked about it at some point during the year, but we'll give people kind of a recap of why, what it was and why this is one of our picks.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know when this movie came out. It may have come out in 2019, but I saw it this year.
That's fine.
It was a kind of post-apocalyptic. Robots have taken over the world and they're going to repopulate the Earth with stored embryos they had. So the story was really, right up my alley because you and I, Eric, we both like post-apocalyptic stuff. I like more of how the downfall happened, or at least clues to what happened. Yeah, and how we got to where we are, more than just kind of surviving in the world. But this was a little bit of both. Kind of shows this girl that was, grown from an embryo by the robot, the mother robot, and it was a good story about what could happen and kind of careful what you wish for type thing.
Yeah, and it did a really good job of not being easy to figure out too. A lot of times you watch movies like that and you can kind of predict the ending before you get to it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This didn't do that. This kind of kept you on your toes for most of the movie.
Well, when we did this on Movie Chatter, I think the three of us got a different kind of takes on what we thought was happening.
Which is another really good thing too.
It was nice. Yeah, it was not a cut and dry ending of this is what happened, but we're like, well, I thought this was it, and you thought something different happened, and Robin thought something different happened entirely.
Yeah, and it's always good when a
And
movie
it's
is something you can walk away from and have a discussion about and come away with different perspectives than what you had while you were watching it. So, I mean, really, this is, I think, is one of the strongest movies to have come out this year, or like you said, maybe it was late last year. I'm not sure, but this was good. And definitely one of the strongest streaming movies, like direct to streaming.
Yeah. And Tim, you were going to say something too. We cut you off a couple times.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I can really appreciate a movie that can have so few actors in it, yet be so insanely compelling and move a story along that well. Yeah, and sure, there's challenges just as much to something like Avengers Endgame, where you have this massive ensemble because you're trying to juggle all these different characters. But I think it's just as difficult to make a 2-character movie, which is what a good chunk of it was until they introduced a third character, to make it that compelling and move that well.
Absolutely.
A lot of good writing.
Right.
Yeah. It's always really difficult, I think, to have just a handful of people carry a film like that. And they did so good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What else?
My next 2 movies, I think you guys both have on your lists, The Old Guard and Six Underground.
Yeah.
Both these were fantastic movies. I bet a lot of our listeners already seen these 2. The Old Guard and Six Underground both got a lot of publicity when Netflix streamed them. So The Old Guard is Charlize Theron, right, as the main character.
Yep.
And Six Underground is our old friend Ryan Reynolds. So, and now Six Underground, I think, was done by Netflix from the beginning.
Yeah.
The Old Guard, I don't know if it was. Was that originally Netflix, or was that somewhere else that they bought and decided to put on streaming?
It actually was. I
okay.
had looked it up because it was one of those things that I wondered myself, that like, wow, this seems like an awfully great movie to just suddenly appear on Netflix, and we hadn't heard anything about it before. But yeah, when in looking up the history of the movie, it actually was originally intended to be for Netflix. It wasn't like bought at an auction or anything.
Yep. So, I mean, 2 really strong action movies.
Yeah. And we're going to cover Six Underground
detail on these
on Movie Chatter coming up after the beginning of the year.
Yeah, in the first at the beginning of the year. Yep.
All right, Tim, what do you have?
Oh gosh, so really, like right off early in the pandemic, really was Invisible Man. Invisible Man was out in theaters for maybe 2 weeks, I think, before things really started to clamp down with the pandemic. And so Universal put it up, premium video on demand, got it that weekend. I think that it went up, and was absolutely not disappointed with it. Incredible retelling of the original story, seriously creepy, just really well written, great movie. Loved it.
Did a great job of modernizing it.
Yeah, they seriously did. They seriously did. So I'm also finding that it's funny, as I went through the list, and I've got a smattering of things between the movies and shows and animated and all that from various platforms, but Netflix, I realized, was the clear winner for me for this year. The vast majority of stuff that ranked really high for me came off of Netflix. Either in a lot of cases as an original, in some cases just because it happens to be there. So Extraction was one of the things that I really liked. That's the Chris Hemsworth movie.
Yeah.
That's a Netflix original that got some attention this summer.
It was really popular.
I enjoyed it.
I haven't seen it yet, but
yeah.
He's a former
good.
military guy who does work for hire or something, and
it's very much it has the feel of an 80s action flick, and I think that might be one of the things that I appreciated the most out of it. I won't say that it's cheesy, but it has just that little bit extra that makes you like, all right, this is like an 80s thing where it's just, it could have been Arnold Schwarzenegger, in his prime in that movie. And it would have been the same movie, basically.
Yeah.
The Old Guard, as Lou had mentioned, which is also Netflix. Enola Holmes, I thought was really great. That's also a Netflix thing.
It was good.
This is the Millie Bobby Brown. She's the sister of Sherlock Holmes, and done very well. Great storytelling, funny, good cast, and they left the door very much open for a sequel, which I'm hoping it gets. I thought it was good. I like mystery kind of things, so you throw that stuff at me, and I'm all over it. 12 Strong, which I talked about maybe month and a half ago on the show, and 12 Strong is a few years old, maybe 3 years old or so. Watch this one on Amazon Prime, and this is another Chris Hemsworth movie. This is Special Forces first boots on the ground in Afghanistan going after terrorists, and it was incredible. Really, really great movie. And folks know, I mean, I love war movies. Tom and I did Dispatches from the Front for a few years, so like I just eat that stuff up, and it was great. It was really well done. And then recently, just in the last couple of weeks, we watched, again, on Netflix for both of these, 2 Jessica Chastain movies. And I really like Jessica Chastain. Great actress. She does, she's just a terrific headliner in movies. It started with Ava, which is a Netflix original, just came out, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, and Netflix marketed the crap out of it. Like, you turn on Netflix and it was Ava, like the marquee of a theater.
Yeah.
Saw that marketing a couple times, had gone on to Netflix originally to watch something else. And then one night finally said, okay, this looks really good. Going to watch it. Was not at all disappointed. It's an interesting take on basically an assassin type of thriller. Really well done. The other one, which this was earlier this week, happened to be scrolling through Netflix to find something to watch, came across Molly's Game. And Molly's Game came out maybe a year ago or so, 18 months ago, in theaters. And again, this is another Jessica Chastain film. She was it's a true story. She was an Olympic hopeful mogul skier. She got hurt, but she was also like really very high academic, great savvy. She had intent to become an attorney, to become an entrepreneur, all that kind of stuff. And once she got injured in qualifying for the Olympics, that's what she ended up turning to, was becoming an entrepreneur. And she's the one who was charged with running illegal card playing rings, which had like really high-end actors in it. And it was interesting that the movie didn't actually name those actors. And I'm assuming that the studios weren't going to do it because they didn't want to ruin their relationship with the actors. But when you look up the actual story of Molly's Game, you've got like some really high-end actors.
Too bad they didn't get those actors to play themselves in the movie.
Oh yeah.
That would be funny.
We're talking like Leonardo DiCaprio, Tony Maguire.
There were
Alex Rodriguez.
Definitely some A-listers in there.
Yeah. So really fascinating, riveting story, and it moved, and like we were glued to it through the whole thing. So that was terrific. Really, really enjoyed that.
Good.
That's what I got for movies.
I still have to. I've got both of those on my list. I just haven't watched them yet, but I've wanted to. They look really good.
I forgot about Molly's Game. Ava's on my list, but I'll probably add Molly's Game back in there too, because that did look good.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to try to get through my picks as best I can. I'm a little bit under the weather, so got a bit of a sore throat here. Movies, kind of. I mean, I didn't really see that much this year. I did see Tenet. I've talked about that before, which is now out for home video. And I'm curious as to whether they fixed the audio issues. The audio was distractingly poorly mixed. But the movie was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm planning on seeing it. And it's interesting you say it, because his films are always pretty heavy with good original audio cues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he pays a lot of attention to audio.
And audio mix being, to have the mix being done wrong just seems like not him.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I'm so confused as to how this got released. Like, it's so bad that I'm confused as to how it got out of the production studio, how it got out of the editing room. I mean, if you look at the use of music and stuff through Inception, that's a whole discussion right there. The choice of music, the slowing down of it as they go different levels into the dream world and all that. But, you know, so Tenet, aside from the audio issue, which, again, if you're watching it at home, probably won't be a problem. And at least you can put subtitles on if you have to. It was a really, really brilliant movie. It didn't have a lot of depth of character, but it had a lot of depth of plot, and it was very interesting. Some incredible action scenes. And the concept was just mind-blowing. Very much what you would expect from Christopher Nolan. I loved it. Something I didn't expect to like. I have a few things on this. In fact, the other three movies I have are things I did not expect to like. I think this came out last year, but again, we're kind of covering things we discovered in 2020. It doesn't have to be from this year. Was a movie called Yesterday. It's an independent film, and it's about the Beatles. Not a Beatles fan. Don't dislike them. Just, you know, I'm just kind of like middle of the road. And very much not the type of movie I would be into. But the concept was brilliant. It's almost a sci-fi concept, though it is absolutely in no way a science fiction movie. It's this guy's riding his bike. He gets hit by a bus. You know, this is a local musician. He plays like cafes and stuff like that. And when he comes to after being in a coma from getting hit by a bus, he's sitting around some friends and he's playing a Beatles song on his guitar, and they're all just awestruck. Like, wow, that's like the most incredible thing I've ever heard. But when did you write that? He's like, what do you mean?
Oh, I remember the marketing for this. Yes.
So when he comes to, the Beatles never existed. So he's got this catalog of Beatles songs. In fact, there are times where he's like frantically trying to remember what the lyrics were to the different songs, and he's got sticky notes all over his wall and stuff, trying to sort it all out. And so he ends up making a career out of this. But it's a very character-driven movie. It's I forget the lead actor's name. I should have looked it up before we started recording. And of course, Lily James. I always remember her name because, wow. But brilliant cast, brilliantly written story, and it's an independent film, and it's so good. So that was what
I didn't realize that was independent, because I remember the marketing for that. It was pretty well marketed.
Yeah, well, it was. When I say independent, aggressive. I should say it was not big budget. I forget what studio did it.
Okay.
So it had it had studio backing behind it. But it also wasn't like a big summer movie or something. I think it came out like in the fall or winter or something. It was, it flew under a lot of people's radar, but it was so good. I would recommend it. Wow. I can't believe I'm going to mention the other two. Someone got me to watch Moana this year. And then, another person, Lila from the Story Crucible, got me to watch it so we could record it on the Story Crucible. I was surprised at how much I liked it. Very much not the type of Disney movie I would like. And it's a musical, and I don't do musicals. It was good. Mm-hmm. It was really good. And then continuing in my I don't do musicals, I was surprised at how good Hamilton was. And I'm glad that I watched it. In fact, I've watched it a couple of times. And I think it's as much the craftsmanship of the music as much as anything else. Like, it's still not the type of thing I would normally do. But the genius of Lin-Manuel Miranda and the way he writes this. So this is a theater production. But unlike some theater productions, there's no just straight dialogue. 100% of the story is all music. It's all songs. which is just insane. I mean, just the quantity of music writing in it is insane. And then to be able to tell the story that way through the music, it's incredible. And then each of the different characters have like a little bit different twist to how they do their performances. Like the King of England is very kind of like pop like. You've got some characters where you can see like old school 80s hip hop references. David Diggs' character's got a lot of like Busta Rhymes sort of technique in his, like you can really break it down into different things.
Interesting.
It's really good. I know it's not 100% historically accurate. It's not supposed to be, it's fiction.
Right.
But it was really good. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised that those are my movie picks for this year. But those are the four things I would recommend. Tenet, Yesterday, Moana, and Hamilton. Back to your point, Tim. Netflix did really, really well this year with their films. And I have to wonder if it's not because all along, they had planned to do streaming. If you look at the stuff that was slated to come out this year, there were a lot of big hitters that we still haven't gotten yet. I mean, we're going to get Wonder Woman here in a couple of days. We're recording this December 23rd. It was just, I mean, Netflix, everybody else walked away. They had to. I'm not seeing anybody did anything wrong as far as the studios go, but they weren't allowed to come to the table. And Netflix was there. They had the table to themselves and they had a feast.
Yeah, I wonder
totally.
how we would have been talking about these movies now if the theaters had the movies they were supposed to have as well. Because I think the streaming stuff got a lot of play this year because it had no competition,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'd be talking about Black Widow and James Bond and
right.
whatever else. We would have been talking about Wonder Woman because it would have released earlier.
Yeah. The new Ryan Reynolds movie that we all want to see.
Free Guy?
Free Guy.
I want to see that so bad.
That guy, what was it? Yeah.
Totally.
Oh, I want to see that so bad. Okay, well, let's talk about TV shows. This is, I think, the one thing that I'm really excited to talk about. And these don't have to be shows that came out this year. These are just things that we discovered this year, or maybe they had returning seasons, and things that we're going to recommend. I'm not going to go first, but let's just get the elephant out of the room here. Mandalorian. Both the end of 2019 and then season 2 that we just got. I mean, come on.
What are you talking about?
It's an independent film about a bunch of people in space with light swords, and they're like psychic, right? So they can like talk and they can move things with their minds.
And they had that Kermit knockoff.
So you got some Muppets.
Yeah.
You've got the Battlestar Galactica people show up and the little fighters and stuff.
Sure.
And you've got the Cylon troopers, and it's got a fan following.
Oh,
Tim.
That sounds cool.
Check it out.
Maybe I'll check that out.
So they spun it off. They took Starbuck, and I mean, she doesn't show up until like the second season, but
yeah, she's wearing different uniforms too. But yeah.
Oh,
she's
no,
really
no,
bossy.
I did see this. It's called Spaceballs.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking
so
about.
So obviously, Mandalorian. You might want to check it out. Just saying.
Yeah, totally.
But if you're one of the few people that haven't already,
if you're listening to our show, we know you've already seen it 3 or 4 times. Lou, what television shows did you discover this year?
There was a ton of stuff out there, and I put a few in the show notes. I got some more written down on my pad that I went through, but and not all of it was stuff that some was I found this year. Some was stuff that I've been watching for either 1 or 2 seasons ahead of this, and just this year's season was good too, so I kind of threw it in there. But something people may not have seen before, Travelers is a Netflix series. Time travel.
Is that the one with the guy from Will and Grace?
Yes.
I started watching that.
Right now. Yeah.
A long time ago.
Pretty good series. I don't know if it's still continuing. I don't know when it was originally aired.
I think it did 2 seasons, and it did not get picked up past that. And I never found out whether it ended on a cliffhanger or not, so I didn't continue it.
I'll let you know at some point because I have not finished it. I've seen season 1. But it's good. It's time travel. For me, it's good stuff. My wife and I started watching Schitt's Creek. which just had its final season aired, I think, which is season 7 right now.
I'm this far from starting it. I'm really tempted.
I've not seen the last season.
You've given it some glowing reviews.
Yeah, and it's annoying at the same time, though. But some of the characters are annoying, but you're like, they grow on you. It's like, I really hate your character, but you do really well.
Is it annoying
I'll keep watching.
Like Arrested Development? Like that kind of annoying? Like it's...
I never saw Arrested Development.
Lou. Okay.
I know. I'm sorry. I know. But it's good.
Okay.
The characters, each one has their faults that you kind of like go, but they do it so well. You're like, okay, I'm in. I'm all in. So, and it's won a lot of awards in its final season too, which was really good. So, that's definitely a must watch, I think. So, The Expanse. We have a show on the network about The Expanse as well. Season 5 just got released. I think I'm in season 4 right now, but
okay.
Season 5 is out there now. Did they do the whole season at once, or they do them spaced out?
They're doing them spaced out. So they dropped the first 3 episodes. They're dropping them every Wednesday. The 4th episode for season 5 just came out today. Yeah, today.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they've confirmed there will be a 6th season. I think that's the final season.
I find myself got to go back and reread some of the books. I'm like, which books is this encompassing again? And kind of get yourself back into the stream of things. But definitely a good series. The books are incredible. The series is incredible too. This was originally on Sci-Fi, I think, was it, and then picked up by Amazon.
Yep. Yeah, there was a big Save the Show campaign that was very successful, and thank goodness because if you haven't seen it, it's a really good series. And if you have seen it and are wondering whether to read the books, there are enough deviations from the books while still hitting the major milestones that I think you can still get a lot from the books after seeing the series. If I see something, a movie or a TV series, I tend to not want to go back and read the books. I think that this is the one time where it's probably safe to do so, and you'd still get the full enjoyment out of the books. There's so much extra depth
like
there.
To go back and read the books.
Yeah.
There is. The depth is amazing, and the way the books are written, you know, even without seeing the stuff, because we read the books years before the series came out, you feel like you are in the action.
Yeah.
You know, the way they write space battles. But good Lord, I'm reading the book and I'm like, I feel like I'm in the ship with these guys. It's like I feel like I know what it feels like to what they're going through.
And the initial scenes on Ceres Station in the first book, like they really do a good job of putting you in the character's head when there's some sort of a tense moment going on, and it's written by James S.A. Corey, which is a pseudonym for the 2 authors who write the book, and they're also the lead exec producers, I think, on the show. Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank, and get the books, read the show, get the show, read the books, good stuff.
Enjoy, and of course, we do need to mention the Tight Beam.
Lou mentioned the podcast without mentioning the name.
I mentioned the name. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, definitely listen to the Tight Beam. I tell you what, the hosts are of all of the shows we do on the network. I really appreciate the amount of work that goes into the Tight Beam and the connections that they've established behind the scenes with the cast and the crew. They're very connected. They're very involved in the fan community. Freaking listen to the Tight Beam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Otherwise, here things we've talked about on the network before. The Boys. Of course, Amazon Prime superhero series was really good.
You and I have a lot of overlap on our lists, so So I'm going to hop in here on and off throughout these.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Boys, Tim?
I have not. I watched the first maybe episode or two. And it was good. It was just one of those things that it dropped off for us because other things came up.
Yeah. So. I would consider going back to it. We covered it on the Story Crucible just recently. I've been way behind on getting those episodes posted because I've got some video editing I've got to do. Those are going to be coming up in the next week or two. So keep an eye out for the Story Crucible episodes. We go through season 1 and season 2. We break it down in a lot of depth. And we have some controversial opinions about both seasons too. But there's a lot
Okay.
of depth there, and there's a lot of good stuff to break down in that series. So
Cool. Jack Ryan, I think you watched that as well, Eric.
yeah,
right?
I'm about halfway through season 2 right now. Still have to finish it up.
Okay.
Loving it.
Yeah, we finished it. It's outstanding.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
really is.
absolutely.
Great series. Really good stuff. I think. God, what's the main actor's name? The main character?
John Krasinski.
John Krasinski. Yeah, he does. He's a great actor to begin with. He's
Such a great guy too.
So.
Like
Yeah,
if I had
yeah,
to,
you feel
pick
like-
someone to have a man crush on, I got to say it'd be a tight run between Ryan Reynolds and John Krasinski. He's just such a great guy.
Definitely. My wife and I have watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
How is that?
It's very good. Not the kind of show I thought I would like, but we really end up enjoying it.
Yeah.
She's it's set back in the 50s, I guess, maybe 40s, 50s era. The characters are Jewish background, a lot of Jewish stuff going on in there as far as, kitschy things, but based on, their society and how their families interact and so forth. And some of our friends that are Jewish had the same thing where they were like, we were worried about people that wouldn't get this, if you didn't grow up Jewish and know all these kind of things. And I'm like, no, I think it's fantastic. It's really, really cool to watch and fun to go through. She's a divorcee who is a stand-up comedian trying to make it, going forward in a, obviously a man's world back then.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun.
And won a lot of awards,
good comedy, too. Good actors in the thing. Yep. And it's been a lot of fun to watch that.
Good.
We've also watched, we're still going through it, Shameless on Netflix.
You do a good job
forget-
of picking these shows with like these really
originally
messed up
Showtime.
characters.
Oh gosh,
Right?
yeah. Shameless is definitely messed up characters. I mean, you watch it and you shake your head going, why would anybody do that? But it's fun. It's a fun show. As demented as some of these people are, but it's a good show to watch. I'm in season 7. I think there's 10 seasons of it.
10 seasons.
So it's like,
wow.
Yeah, and I think they're in the final season now.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a good movie to watch if you feel like yelling at the TV because people are making stupid decisions. And it's like, what are you doing? But it's good.
Nice.
We talked about Upload already on the network. I know you
so
like that
good.
show as well too, Eric.
Yeah.
That's a great
I'm going to
show.
say right now,
To Tim, you watched it
not
too?
not to steal your thunder. Upload may be my favorite release of 2020, and that's across movies, TV shows, books, video games.
Okay.
And it's not. I'm not saying it's the best. It's just. It's one I connected with more so than anything else, and it was in part because it was fun, but also in part because while still being fun and still having like these goofy moments and stuff, there's so much depth in that show. There's commentary about the class differences within society. There's commentary about they don't really get into religion. But the nature of the afterlife and the nature of, what is existence? What does it mean to be alive? And they don't do it in a really scientific way. They do it in a very humanistic way. What do I mean? What does it mean to be me? Mm-hmm. And the nature of relationships. What does it really mean to be in love with someone? What does it really mean to be in a committed relationship with someone, even if maybe that's not the right person for you? Like just item after item after item. And they don't give any of these topics really the short shrift. They go all in and they don't necessarily answer questions about all of them, but they hit a lot of these different topics in really meaningful ways. And just in one season of maybe 10 episodes?
And in very unique ways.
This is stuff we haven't seen before.
It's a completely different perspective, for the most part, than we've ever seen before. It's such a great show.
And I think one thing that makes it really compelling is it doesn't seem like it's not set in really high tech sci-fi, right? But it's definitely
near
high
future.
tech. But it seems like it's really close to could this be possible?
Right.
Maybe. It's like it's not too far off.
Yeah. And there's so many levels there. You've got the the relationship side of things. You've got the tech side of things. You've got the murder mystery side of things. You've got just such a good show.
And you got the workplace drama going on too, with the characters that are running the service for these deceased people. Yeah, just a lot of fun. The next one I'm putting down here as I think I really enjoyed it. I wish it got picked up for another season, but it's a one and done for 2020. CB's series called Away. Hilary Swank stars in this as the commander of Mission to Mars.
Okay.
And there's some pretty good. I haven't watched the whole season of it. I think I've been like 4 or 5 episodes in. Then I got sidetracked with other stuff, but it was really good, compelling, and then it got canceled. So I'm like, do I really even want to finish it? But I mean, good cast. Hilary Swank does a good job, and in fact, I found this right after we had seen I Am Mother. She played in that too. So she's a good, strong actress, and it's a good series about space exploration and kind of the near future of where we might actually be going to Mars in the next 10 years. So, I'd give it a shot, even though it's a one and done for the season.
Cool.
And lastly, Lost in Space. We've talked about that in the network before too. I think it's a good reimagining of the series, and I can't wait to get more of that.
I still have to go back and finish.
I gotta say, the only reason why it didn't make my list was because season 2 took forever to get to where it was going.
And I think I dropped season 2 before it got there. I really need to go back and see where it goes. I agree with you, Tim.
Yeah, even in watching it, like we watched the first 2 or 3 episodes and then went back to it like a month and a half later. It was like, we didn't finish that yet.
Right.
And even then, like the next episode or two is kind of like a chore. And it was one of those things like, we're this invested in it, let's finish it. And it ended up, the season finished on a high note. It was really good. The last couple of episodes are fantastic, but it's like those first few were rough. I mean, there was good character development, but as far as like meaningful progression of the story, man, I just see needed to get out and push.
Yeah. And it's funny because we all have different interpretations of what we think is good pacing and good story development. I mean, I had a lot of complaints over The Mandalorian season 1. I thought season 1 didn't. I mean, I kept thinking to myself, "Come on, you've got 8 episodes to go, and we're only getting like a half hour per episode. Let's give me some story here."
And Filoni's done that with Rebels and Clone Wars as well. So
So yeah, I mean, I can see where somebody would say Lost in Space season 2 was kind of slow and kind of didn't know where it was going until it got to the end and it was a ball of fire. But I was pretty much enjoying the whole season of season 2.
Good.
I look forward to finishing it.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, if I have anything else in my notes here, Hannah.
Is that good? Movie. I've heard the movie was good, and I never saw the movie. And then I heard the series was good. Like, I don't hear people raving about it, but
okay. I mean, it didn't make. It wouldn't say it was like stellar,
but
it was good.
Worth checking out. Okay.
All
right.
And that's pretty much about it.
All right, Tim. What about you? What shows have you been watching in 2020 that you would recommend to people?
Well, again, there's a good handful of Netflix series that ended up on here. So the Dracula series that Netflix did is really just incredible. It's a terrific reimagining of that story. Thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyable. If you like anything in that lore, you're going to enjoy it. And it certainly seems that there's going to be a season 2. I can't remember if they actually greenlit it or not. But they very much left it open to continue. I think it was only maybe 3 or 4 episodes, 3 episodes, I think, that was in that first season. So, and they're long episodes. Warrior Nun.
Oh yeah. I still have to watch that.
That's sort of
and it's just like you look at the concept of it and it is just cheesy as hell. But when you watch it, it is legit good. It carries you the whole way. It's fantastic. Really, really good. And then The Chef Show, which has had multiple seasons. I think maybe 3 seasons. No, I guess it's only their second season.
Is that the one with John Favreau?
Yes,
I've been
this
meaning
is
to
Jon
watch
Favreau and Roy Choi.
Okay.
And they worked together on the movie Chef, which Favreau did a few years ago, and then they got this idea to do this series, and it's awesome that they get together and they cook, and it's not a it's not like watching something on Food Network.
Right.
It's totally different. The intent of it is different. The dialogue of it is different. They visit different restaurants and they talk to those restaurateurs and those chefs that are there, and they really get a lot of insight into that. Or they'll have some of those chefs come visit them. Sometimes some other celebrities, they've had directors and actors and that kind of stuff on. So you're getting like that bit of pop culture along with the cooking stuff. And so it's kind of a collision of two of my favorite worlds. So that makes me really happy. The second season of What We Do in the Shadows on FX, which I just absolutely love that show. It's phenomenal what they do with it. The comedy is fantastic. Season 1 of Lego Masters, which I absolutely loved the show.
Yep, great show.
I love the premise of the show. Of course, we had 2 of the competitors on Random Chatter that Lou and I spoke to toward the end of season 1. It's been renewed for a second season. You talked about Upload, Lou, and then BattleBots. Folks know that big fan of
you got me
BattleBots.
into that. Yep.
And
I'm hooked now.
Are you caught up for this season?
I am about halfway through last week's episode.
Okay. Yeah, there have been some kind of dramatic. I keep thinking to myself every time I'm watching one of these, I'm like, oh man, we should do like a blind, haven't seen it yet, watch together, and watch it live with the three of us.
That would be fun.
Because I would love to hear from you guys, like, as they're about to do a battle, like, which one you think is going to win and why. And, like, I keep having that debate with myself, and I'm like, there's nobody in the room with me.
You should play that. Yeah, well, it's funny because I don't have the experience with that show you guys do. So I watched a little bit here and there when you guys first mentioned it to get a feel for what the seasons were like. But I'm coming into this season, like, kind of brand new. I don't know who's... like they talk about who's been there for a while and this and that, who's kind of the winners and so forth. But I'm looking at the bots. I'm going, okay, with this and that. And like last week's episode I watched, and I'm trying to think of who it was. There was a spinner up against some bot from MIT heads that uppercut. I think it was. And holy Christmas, did that thing land a good blow? And this bot just blew. I'm like,
that was from this most recent episode. Yeah. Uppercut,
like,
I think it was.
Impressive.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah,
it's really. I mean, you have there's the engineering side of it, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Then there's this really visceral sporting side to it, because it's almost like something like boxing or whatever, because it's this direct one-on-one competition of basically who can screw the other person up as much as possible. Or outlast them, which sometimes happens. But like you said, Lou, I mean, just to watch some of these, robots, and these things are 250 pounds.
Yeah.
To watch these things explode, catch on fire, just parts all over the place, a freaking yard sale of robot is absolutely amazing. And all the different configurations that you get. You've got full body spinners. You've got ones that have vertical drums. You've got ones that have horizontal spinners on them, like a lawnmower blade.
You got flippers.
You've got things that crush. You've got fire. You've got hammers. All sorts of different things. And some things will do better against others.
That's the interesting thing, is watching the meta game, like based on what happens in one season, all of a sudden next season everybody adapts.
Right.
Because
or even some guys talk about which weapon they're going to put on their bot this time. So, I'm going against this guy, so I'm going to use this spinner instead of that.
So some of the spinner blades and stuff, they'll change it out based on who they're going up against. And that's what fascinates me about the show too, is you've got so many different elements of the battle. You've got the strategy of the design. You've got the strategy of what you're going to do when you get in there, and what you're going to, which weapons you're going to attach to different rounds. You've got the tactics of what decisions you're going to make there in the battle box. You've also got the driving. I mean, some of these robots, they don't do much, but the driver's so good. And then you've got other opponents where the driver is okay, but he's compensated for it with the design. It's just like you said, it's like boxing and stuff, but there's so many different elements of it's not just what happens there in the ring. It's also what happens before you get into the ring. And then you've got, there's offensive stuff, there's defensive stuff. How long can your bot hold up? I mean, sometimes you don't even have to destroy the other person. If he ends up accidentally destroying himself through being too aggressive, you win.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. If you're not watching BattleBots,
and because
you owe it to yourself to check it out.
Yeah. And because they're capped at 250 pounds, you basically have this constant competition of weapon versus armor. You can build up this phenomenal weapon, but if you don't have armor covering, say, your tires, a lot of your opponents are just going to chew up your tires, and then you're going to sit there.
If you can't move, you're out.
If you don't have a mechanism to self-right yourself, you're done. If you're up against a flipper, or anything, even one of the drum ones that'll, end up making you fly and you end up on your back, you're done. It's absolutely incredible. And so that was another interview that we had on Random Chatter, was having Farouk on the show, who's the announcer for it. And he's just, the dude is so funny. He's really, really funny. So this season of BattleBots has been great, and I've been really excited for it. And
maybe we'll have to have him on again.
We do. Yeah. I gotta get a hold of him and his publicist and get him on again. Absolutely. So that's my show list.
All right,
for 2020.
Well, cool. One of the downsides of going last, I guess, is we already covered a lot of mine. I had both Lego Masters and BattleBots on my list. I'm absolutely a BattleBots addict now. And Upload, like I said, not only do I love this show, it's probably my favorite pick of any sort of media content for 2020. Again, I'm not saying it's the best, but it's really solid, and I cannot wait. Like, I'm actually kind of pissed off about not getting the next season already. Like, I'm that much into this show. I do have some other picks, though. So some of the things that I highlighted is my favorite picks over some of the others. I'm going to get to in just a second. We mentioned The Mandalorian. We mentioned Jack Ryan. We mentioned The Boys. A couple of other things before I get to my big picks. I started watching The Queen's Gambit. I'm still partway through it. It's for a show about chess, it's surprisingly good. What else? Watchmen. I loved the comic book series. I was okay with most of the Zack Snyder movie, except the really awkward sex scene. And then the change of the end, which kind of changed the theme for the whole movie, in my opinion. Like the whole point, the moral point of the movie, he kind of broke at the end of the movie. But this series, though, which Damon Lindelof was one of the showrunners for, incredible. Like, it was such a good series. I think it was on HBO Max. I highly recommend it. Like, it was one of the best series to come out of this year. Also, did you guys see The Witcher?
Yes. No. Yeah.
Not my style of show.
Finally did see The Witcher.
Not my style of show at all, but it was really good.
Yeah, I did enjoy that. I absolutely enjoyed that.
What else? Avenue 5, a kind of a sci-fi sitcom kind of show on HBO. Very kind of dark comedy. Like, none of these characters, there are a couple of characters you do want to root for. They're not the characters in control of anything, which, I can't wait for that one to come back as well. Hugh Laurie, Josh Gad, a few other names in it. Really good stuff. But oh, and one other kind of something that flew under the radar that I discovered this year. I mentioned Hamilton, and I had known that Lin-Manuel Miranda had done improv hip hop way back in the day. In fact, that's where I knew him from before he did all this other stuff. So he has a group in New York that they perform. They're called Freestyle Love Supreme, and now like it's come back and they have new people in it and stuff. But it's kind of like Comedy Sports if you've ever done that or gone to an improv show. But they do hip hop, and they have a show, a series they did, and you can pick it up on iTunes called Freestyle Love Supreme. And if you're into that sort of thing, it's really good. If you're into hip hop, if you're into music, if you're into improv, any one of those three, then you're probably going to like this show. It's phenomenal.
Nice.
My 3 big picks for this year, other than Upload. Number 1, Mythic Quest, a sitcom on Apple TV Plus. It was the first Apple TV Plus show I watched. I think it's worth taking some sort of a free trial just to watch this. And then if you drop the service, you drop the service. It's set in a production company of an MMORPG. So like an online, like a World of Warcraft kind of video game. And the guy running it is kind of also like the poster boy of the game. Very arrogant, very full of himself, not the best at making decisions. He has a lead programmer who's always kind of trying to rein him in, who's also always up against the money guy, played by Danny Pudi of Community. Great cast, phenomenal cast, incredible writing. The show really does not get the credit it deserves. Like, it's one of the best written shows that have come out this year. Also, another one we talked about before, Lou, was Ozark.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one. That's definitely a good show. Should have made my list.
What an intense show. I mean, talk about one that they keep upping the game. And
yeah, every time you think he's in the corner, he's got a way out. And I mean,
into another corner.
Bateman does a great job as he's a showrunner.
Yeah, he's a showrunner,
right? Doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
And the writing
as a lead actor.
Just like when you do shows like this, you always end up writing yourself into a corner because you can't make the stakes any higher. And yet they do, and they just keep going and going and going. It's absolutely incredible. I highly recommend Ozark.
Yeah. Definitely. No, they got one more season in them, or they?
There is another season coming. I don't recall whether they said it's the last season. It might be.
Oh, I hope not. Okay, good. I hope not.
I hope not too. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they can keep running with this as long as they want. Like, this is incredible. I think it's one more season though. And then finally, one that I really had low hopes for, and it blew me away, was Snowpiercer. Stupid concept. I mean, frankly.
Yeah, you said that.
The concept's stupid. But the world that they create, that, you know, Lou, you and I talked before, we like dystopias. And I know the concept is crappy. I started watching the show and I'm like, you know, everybody disses the movie. It can't be that bad, right? Like, how, if I like the show, maybe I'll like the movie. So I went and watched the movie, and holy crap, was that just horrible.
And that's why you keep saying the series is good. And I'm like, okay, but I don't know if I can bring myself to do it because the movie was just horrific.
Angry. So I had justification to see the movie. I told myself, no matter how bad the movie is, it's justified because I can get on a podcast and I can talk about the differences between the two. So I'm not wasting my time. It's okay, even if it's really bad. I was so angry. I was so freaking angry, Lou. I wanted that hour and a half of my life back so bad. If Chris Evans hadn't done such a good job in other stuff he's been in, I'd be on change.org right now saying he should never work again. One of the worst movies.
It's not a good movie.
One of the worst movies I've seen in as long as I can imagine. Like, it's not just that it was a bad movie. It was one of the worst movies. Like, it's so bad.
Yeah, I came close to not finishing
I did too.
I did, but I'm like,
and it was research for me. Like I had justification to finish it no matter how, and I still almost didn't finish it. Wow. Anyway, fortunately, the TV series it's different enough. Well, it's really different. And it's got solid writing, which the movie didn't have. It's got solid acting, which the movie didn't have. It has a story at all, which the movie didn't have, and this one's a good story. The world building is good. The only thing bad about the show is, again, the concept ever since the beginning has always been kind of ridiculous. But everything else about the show is incredible. I highly recommend it. I think a lot of people aren't giving it a chance because, again, wow, that movie was bad. But great series. So those are my picks. Again, my top 4: Upload, Snowpiercer, Ozark, and Mythic Quest. Why don't we talk documentaries real quick? Tim, you don't really do documentaries that much. I know you and Robin aren't really into that.
Not a lot. I mean, I'll jump into one once in a while. And I know I've watched some, but I don't think there's anything that particularly memorable for me.
Lou, what about you?
I like documentaries. And I get frustrated with them because I wish they were more balanced.
Right.
Usually they are one person with an axe to grind or something. I want to get their point across, and they don't take both sides as a balanced argument. And I wish they would. But and one thing I left off here, I just watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Oh, right.
Which is really good. I took some issues with some of the stuff they had in there, but I think it's a good documentary to watch, especially knowing kind of what we know now and kind of how we are with social media and so forth. So that should be on my list. It wasn't on here, but otherwise I watched one called The Game Changers. I found this. I forget where I watched it. I'll tell you the truth. It was streaming somewhere, but basically I follow Formula One, and one of the executive producers on this was Lewis Hamilton, who is 7-time world champion Formula One driver. And it's all about going with a plant-based diet, and excluding all, animal-based proteins at all from your diet. And it was him. It was which football team was it? South Carolina, maybe. One of the major NFL teams, a good portion of their roster went plant-based. One of the strongest men in the world who does these, pulling a truck type thing and all kinds of stuff. He's plant-based diet. And one of the things he mentioned in this thing was like, he's like, the people say you're strong as a bull. He's like, yeah, well, what do bulls eat? And it's like, good point, but I'm not saying it made me a vegetarian because it didn't. I still love my meat. I'm making a wonderful tri-tip for Christmas Day, but it does give you some thoughts as to, we don't need what we have in the processed meals that we have and this and that. Right. So definitely a cool one to watch. It's called The Game Changers. I also watched a series on Netflix called Challenger: The Final Flight. It was all about the shuttle Challenger disaster back in, was it 86, I think.
85.
And it was really interesting to see what they dug up on this and kind of, when we did the postmortem and what happened before and who knew what when. And, it's scary to know how many people knew we had issues going forward with this thing and no one said a word. And
I didn't know they get into that kind of depth with it. I remember that day I was actually homesick from school that day. And then I ended up watching the whole thing on television.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching in class that
that's
day. We had
the thing all across the country. Yeah.
But and after we all knew what happened, obviously. But then when you start going back and you started learning what the managers at NASA were under pressure for to keep up with the launch schedule, and then you find out things like they never ever met their launch criteria schedule since day one of the shuttle program. They had a very ambitious schedule to launch. Nearly twice as many shuttles as they had actually launched, and never once they had launched one on time, never met a deadline, all this kind of stuff, and they were under more and more pressure to prove this could be a economical way to open space up to us, which it never turned out to be, and even down to the manufacturers of the solid rocket boosters, which caused the problem, Norton Thiokol, they had known those issues in cold weather, and they get kind of hushed up and not talked about beforehand. And and it's one of those things where they launched that one day in January, and if they had waited the next day when it was 10 degrees warmer, probably wouldn't have had a problem. And it's just one of those things where you think of all the what ifs, and you're like, wow, that's interesting. But so that was a very eye-opening documentary, a series of 4 or 5 episodes, really good. And then I watched another series on them called High Score, about video games.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And I'm not sure it's a documentary really, but it kind of is. But
it's kind of a historical,
of video games, and it was a lot of fun.
It was really good
fun to watch that and kind of relive that. Yep.
Yeah.
If I can, I am going to jump in just with a quick mention of
no. You said no
of documentaries that I've watched, and that's Marvel 616.
Oh yeah,
on Disney Plus.
Yep.
Which is and Marvel 616 just came out in the last 4 or 6 weeks or so, and it's a great series of documentaries about Marvel comics in pop culture, and that influence everything from cosplay to art to all sorts of different infusions, and it really good, really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed
unique. Like so far, I'm only partway through it, but it's all stuff that I hadn't seen before. I've watched a lot of content about comics and about Marvel. This is all new stuff to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Really good.
Yeah. All right. I didn't put these on my list, but speaking of those sorts of things, the movies that made us just released a couple of episodes about holiday movies. And also that came out of a series called The Toys That Made Us, which was also really good if you grew up in the 80s. So honorable mentions to them.
Yeah.
I'm going to say The Last Dance. You guys know I'm not into sports. But this documentary series...
This sounds like a very romantic documentary.
It is. It's about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls and dancing. I guess.
I didn't know he danced. Yeah, it's awesome.
Not what I thought, no.
It's about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls and that whole championship run that they had. And it was incredible. It was really, really good. I highly recommend it. Even if you're not into sports, like I'm not, it's interesting to see the discipline that went into the team, the conflicts that went into the situation. And I mean, it was historical. It was, I'm not into sports, but I understand its relevancy to pop culture and to just culture in general here in the US. And I appreciate it. It's just not my thing, but it was really good and it was worth watching.
Okay. I'll throw in one more sports one too, because I did watch this at the beginning of the pandemic. It was from last year. They had 2 seasons of it. I'm waiting for this year's season to come out, but Formula One does one called the Drive to Survive, I think it is, on Netflix. And it's kind of behind the scenes, and each episode focused on one race and one team and the struggles they were going through. Because kind of in Formula One, you've got the haves and the have-nots, where you've got the 2 or 3 teams that are just, fully funded and doing really, really well, and other teams that are struggling just to be, on the grid and never winning a race and maybe getting a point here and there. But it's interesting the pressure some of these kids are under, and these drivers are all 19, 20 years old. And they're driving the most high performance cars in the world. Pretty cool to watch.
Okay. Let's see what else. I'd say The Vow on HBO Max, which was about the Nexium situation. There was another one that might have been on Hulu. I think it was called Seduced, and it was also about Nexium, and that one was a lot more direct and a lot more had a lot more specifics and data in it. The Vow was really more focused about the people who got out and some of the guilt they had and the work they did to try to expose the whole situation. And apparently they've got another season coming, I think. But it was really good. But one documentary, this is a documentary movie, not a series, that stood out to me that I recommend you watch, because it's not often that documentaries are kind of funny, but in a tragic, frightening, scary kind of way. And that's Class Action Park.
I remember that. Yes, that was good.
I guess this was also back in the 80s. And was it somewhere in New York? New Jersey?
It was Jersey,
yeah, somewhere within driving distance in New York City, so people could get to it.
I've been there.
I
went there.
Did you?
Yeah, in high school. Oh yeah.
And you survived. Is it as bad as people say, as far as like?
Well, I mean, when I went there, I was high school age, so I didn't know how bad and dangerous.
Talk about a death trap! Like watching this documentary of people who worked there, just mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing.
When they talked about the. Yep. I mean, do you remember when they talked about the loop tube thing they had?
Yeah. So they had a water slide that was a tube, and it had a loop in it.
Now, we saw every time I went there maybe half a dozen times in high school, and we saw this and we're like, oh my god, look at that! And we're like, it was never open when we were there. It was built. It was never actually open. Because we're like, if it was open, I don't know if I'd go.
Right, it doesn't pass your common sense test.
It's like I don't know. Yeah, and now you listen to this thing, like they'd find teeth in there, people from wagging their face, and
here's the thing. So at the top of the loop, if you don't get enough momentum, you fall and you hit the top of the tube, and then you slide down, and people were coming out all bloody and stuff. But it wasn't like from contusions; it was like slicing open and stuff, and it was because of the teeth embedded at the top of the loop in the plastic. That was then cutting through the people who then hit the plastic as they go back through. And that, I thought that was going to be like the big thing of the documentary. No, there was so much more. That was just one of a plethora of rides they covered. I'm not sure the parking lot of this place was safe. It was incredible. Like it's so bad. Like drop everything you're doing after you're watching this show and go check it out. Like it's that incredible.
Yep. I mean, and I never got hurt. I mean, some people I went with got hurt because they, fall off the alpine side, which is basically
oh my gosh, that one too,
riding down a cement, a cement slab, and you fall off that, and you just, it's like
right.
road pizza. But we got in line at one point. We're sitting in line. We're like, okay, what's this? And we're like, big long line. We're like waiting. We didn't even know what the ride was. And as we're getting up to the front, people are like going, I'm not doing that. And they're taking off. I'm like going, this must be really good. People are getting scared and leaving. I'm like, yeah, let's just keep going. And we get to the end, and all it was like cliff diving, like 30 feet into a pool. We're like,
yeah.
Oh, like, okay.
And you might hit the person below you in the pool. You might not. Who knows? Like it was like people died there. Like I'm kind of laughing and stuff, but it's not funny. Like there were deaths, and they were specifically related to the fact that this is like the most unsafe place ever in the history of ever. You have to watch the documentary. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on about it that long, but yeah.
No, yeah. It was definitely good to watch.
Class Action Park. Definitely check it out. Go out of your way to watch it.
Interesting. Okay.
Animated series. The only thing I really watched this year that was animated that stood out to me was Sword Art Online, which is a very, very popular anime series. And it's actually mentioned in Ready Player 2, which is also my only book pick for this. And I think we should probably cover Ready Player 2 in an upcoming review for Random Chatter, one of our review episodes, since we've all read it now. But it's basically...
I've been trying to get...
Huh?
I've been trying to get Ernest Cline for an interview, but I have not gotten a response yet.
Yeah, well, between Christmas and the fact that it just came out, we'll keep plugging away at it.
Well, yeah. We'll keep trying.
But it's the concept basically is there's this VR MMO game, and on launch day, the same company that makes the game also makes all the headsets. And there's a thing in the headset, because there's like haptic feedback and neural connectivity and stuff. If you log out, you die. In fact, they've removed the ability to log out of the game. And if someone else disconnects you, it fries your brainstem as it's getting removed. And if you die in the game, you die in real life. And nobody gets to get out until they hit like a level 100 of the game and kill the main boss. And there's a whole explanation as to, why the person set it up that way. And it goes into, that's all season 1. And there's actually 2 more seasons and then a spinoff season, which I haven't watched the spinoff. It's it's really for anime. Like, I'm not experienced with anime. I'm still not like a huge anime fan. I'm getting there. Trying to dip my toe in the pool. It was good. It was, I liked it. But that's the only animated thing I've got. What about you, Tim? Oh.
I'm actually going to let Lou go first because I know he has to bounce from the call here.
Yeah, I got a couple minutes. But yeah, I watched The Liberator. It's a 4 or 5 episode limited series on Netflix. World War II, based on real life. I forget what the group was they were following, but interesting movie or interesting animated series. A little bit weird on the animation style. It was kind of that half animated, half photo real stuff going on. I think it was originally meant to be filmed, and they ended up not doing it, so they went the cheaper route and kind of did half animation.
Right, so they like drew over the film cells.
Yeah, definitely a good story.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all I got for animated. What about you, Tim?
I have a handful of things. So the Harley Quinn animated series is really
surprisingly good.
Very well done. This is the one Kaylee Cuoco. Yeah. Kaylee Cuoco plays Harley. I watched all of season 1 and the first part of season 2, and then I think it switched over to HBO Max. So as soon as my subscription hits for HBO Max, which I'll probably do tomorrow, I'll be able to get caught up on that, which I'm looking forward to.
Hey, Tim,
yeah.
There's a 48-hour cooling off period for the subscription sign up for that, so you can't watch Wonder Woman on Christmas Day. I'm sorry.
What? Are you serious? That's awesome.
No.
I love that. It's okay, Tim. We'll tell you how it is. We'll tell you whether the movie's any good.
Gee, thanks.
Sorry, Tim.
Let's see. The 3rd season of Castlevania. This is another Netflix
3 seasons
animation.
Wow.
Yeah, and I believe they're going for a 4th. I think that's already in the works. It's a fantastic series. It really is. It's so good. Transformers: War for Cybertron. That's another Netflix series. I will say the first season was good. It wasn't mind-blowing, but the setup for it, I think, is good. We've got the 2nd season, which releases on New Year's Day, I think, or December 30th, New Year's Eve, or somewhere around there. The setup is good. The story is original. I like the animation style. I'm really, really happy with it. So
it's too short.
I'm definitely sticking with it.
That's the only issue.
Yeah, it is a little short. Yeah. And then Archer. I'm glad that Archer came back to what Archer should be, to what it originally was. In this season, the last few seasons were this coma dream. So each season was like this unique setting and time period and all that. And some of them were good, some of them not so much. But now they're back to, like, quote, present time, and Archer is a spy again. And, the group is, basically the band is back together. And this was supposed to be its last season, and they actually ended up renewing it for another season, which now they're saying that's going to be the last season. But they got such a great reception on it, and they're in their mid-season break right now. So I'm looking forward to.
I was wondering, because I'm like, that
but
doesn't seem like a finale. Okay.
No. Yeah. Mid-season. It seems like every show now does a mid-season break. It's
shows suck.
It's a weird thing. Like, they never used to do that, and then now suddenly there's either a mid-season break, or sometimes there's 2 breaks now in a season. They're doing it like in thirds. It's a very weird kind of thing, but yeah, Archer's just great. I'm thrilled that it's back.
It's really good. All right, Lou, you got to take off. We're just going to talk books, I think, and
I'm gonna bolt,
then we're done. So.
Yeah, I will gladly say yay for Ready Player 2, like you guys already talked about.
Yeah, we're going to save that for a bigger discussion later on, I think. So, well, thanks for being here with us, Lou, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Hey, good. Same to you guys.
All right, Lou, catch you later.
Later, buddy.
See ya.
All right, now I've got to make sure that I've got the audio correct for Tim.
Check 1 2.
Oh, yep, there we go. Okay, because I've had technical difficulties before where I didn't get things lined up properly once Lou leaves. So
Yes,
we're just about done. We've just got books and video games. The only book that for me really stood out, I've read a couple of good ones. I thought Thrawn Chaos Rising was really good, but I think Ready Player 2, which I just finished yesterday, probably the best book I read this year. I don't know. Chaos Rising was pretty good, but
yeah, I like the setup for Chaos Rising. It's also on my list. Yeah, I was really happy with how it progressed, how they're setting up this backstory for Thrawn, and I'm looking forward to the next book in the trilogy.
Yeah, I am too. I'm really sometimes the thing about book series is just how long it takes to get to the next one sometimes. But I didn't really read a lot of books this year because I typically do audiobooks. And now that I've had a shorter commute, I don't listen to them when I'm just sitting around at home. It's always if I'm out somewhere, and with COVID, I haven't gone anywhere. Haven't had a commute.
Yeah.
Haven't done any traveling. Haven't really done much with books. So what about you though?
It's an interesting similarity for me because a lot of my reading I will do on planes or in hotel rooms and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And because haven't really traveled much this year, there has been much less reading than I usually do. But right. So I have had to kind of, I went actually a few months this year of not reading, and I had to like actually realize like, oh wow, I haven't done that. So I started to discipline myself of at least a few evenings a week. And then sometimes if I, get really, really into a book, then like sometimes in the morning, make my tea, sit down, read a bit. So yeah, I've been starting to and
it's important too, because they say that the part of your brain that processing written text uses and then creatively when you have to then create a mental picture of what you're reading, it's different from the part of your brain that listens to audiobooks, and it's definitely different than the part that watches video. So it's important.
Yeah. At Ready Player 2, I am almost finished with. And I'm actually doing the audiobook version of that. So that's similarly taking me a little bit longer because I'm usually only listening to it like if I'm driving around somewhere. And again, there's been less of that. So there have been a couple of like, I'll get an hour or two of downtime where I'm maybe doing something else and, that doesn't require a lot of brain power. So I'll listen to it. So yeah, I'm almost done with that. Folks know I'm a big fan of James Rollins. My wife and I have interviewed him a couple of times for the network. And the book that came out for him this year was The Last Odyssey, which was a great book. He also has his compendium book that came out with a bunch of short stories, which I haven't cracked into yet, just because I had other books going at the time. But I plan on getting to that probably right after the holidays, because I'll have finished Ready Player 2, and I am just about finished with I very often, especially when I am in full swing on books, I will have 2, sometimes 3 books going. I'll generally a fiction and a nonfiction. Yeah, I
can do fiction and nonfiction. I can't do 2 fiction.
Yeah, because then your brain gets screwed up with it. So I have there have been a handful of nonfiction books that I've read this year. But the one that I'm reading right now that I'm almost done with is by far the most interesting, and I've been burning through it. It's called Team of Teams. It's actually written by General Stanley McChrystal, and it's
why does that sound
it's
familiar?
basically an organizational. He was the commander of the task force in Iraq, going after Al Qaeda for a number of years. And it's an organizational psychology type of thing, and a lot of what I do in disaster management, really a lot of it fundamentally does have to do with organizational psychology. I a lot of the stuff I work with is how do we best organize and train people to manage disasters. Right. And so while yes, there was a significant undertone of military organizational stuff, he also went back into history and looked at like different business and industry models on organization and what worked and what didn't work, or, you know, maybe what worked for a period of time and then what changed and all that. And you know, he comes up with certain concepts. And so, of course, as I'm reading the whole thing, I'm just thinking disaster management the whole way. So I have a whole bunch of things marked up in there that I'm probably going to be using for some future projects with clients. And then beyond that, comics. Lots of
I got to get back into comics.
You know, Comixology. Yeah, Comixology is just.
Have you tried Marvel Unlimited?
And, you know, I have not.
I have in the past. I really liked it.
Yeah, and it seems that I got to look at it again. I got to see what their structure is, but it seems that price wise, Comixology is better for me. And then also while most of what I read is Marvel, I will sometimes dip into, like, you know, I'll pick up a DC graphic novel or something like that. So there are some other things that I dip into, but and of course, you know, not to say you can't have both, because I think Marvel Unlimited is subscription based. And Comixology, unless you get Comixology Unlimited, you're just paying piecemeal. Which is what I do. I did do Comixology Unlimited for a little while.
The selection is okay.
Yeah, I found that a lot of the stuff that I was reading really wasn't part of that, or wasn't getting discounted in it. So I dumped it. It became not worthwhile for me. But I have consumed a lot of stuff, and it's been nice to consume new things. So like there's a new Iron Man series, which I think is really good. The Doctor Doom series, which has been going on, is good. The Star Wars comics, really good. And then I've had the opportunity to go back and consume like some of the classic story arcs that so often get referenced in, you know, Marvel lore, or to, you know, there's opportunities in it of, you can't just go to the comic book shop and pick up the issue of the first appearance of Doctor Doom, because of course you'll pay $30,000 for it if you find it. Whereas in Comixology, I paid $4 for it. And, you know, and I can read it. You know, I've gone through the entire back catalog of Moon Knight stuff that I hadn't read. There was a couple of runs of it that I did, and then there were some stuff, the original stuff, that I hadn't. So I went back and I tore through all of that.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of stuff in
we
comics.
Need to have, we need to have an episode, probably here on Random Chatter, where we bring in some people who are kind of up to speed on comics and help the rest of us get into them, or at least find some things to read. Like one of them, like you mentioned, going back to these big milestone series and just getting a brief description of what's going on. And then just having some things that we can go to Comixology, or I think Marvel Unlimited is really good for what you're paying for. It's $9.99 a month, and you get pretty much the entire Marvel catalog minus the most recent 6 months worth of stuff. So unless you're already caught up, there's a crap load of stuff to catch up on. It's a good quality app.
Sure.
I have an iPad Pro, a 12.9 inch iPad Pro, and it's about the size of a comic book page. So I just throw it vertically, and it's almost like I'm got a full size comic right there in front of me. Really good stuff. The only thing is,
do they do do they do the guided reading thing too that Comixology does, where you can go panel for panel?
And I was really skeptical about that at first, but I've given it another chance recently. And it's not bad. So, and then the DC system too.
It's funny how
is similar.
Yeah. It's funny how the guided reading stuff, it works really, really great for newer comics, because I think that when they design the pages and the panels, they have that in mind, just because so many people consume it. For older comics, a lot of times it doesn't work so well, because they would throw a speech bubble that's relevant to one panel up in another panel because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And you're actually like, you end up reading that speech bubble and it doesn't make sense until you get 2 more panels through and you're like, oh, that's what that was for.
Yeah.
So sometimes with the older books, it doesn't really jive so well, but still I like it. And because they're zooming in on each panel, so you get to really appreciate the art. You can appreciate everything that's going on with it. You're reading it, and it's just a tap of the screen, and it goes on to the.
And it makes reading it on your phone feasible, whereas otherwise it typically wouldn't be.
True.
Still a little rough. Yeah. I still like the iPad idea, but but I think we need to have an episode where we kind of talk. The other thing too, like I sort of got lost in Marvel Unlimited. I'm like, great, I can catch up on what's going on now with the mutant books and this and that, and I didn't know where to start.
There's no catching up when it comes to comics.
That's the thing.
Especially when you're looking at some of the big titles. It's really, really tough. You kind of have to say, okay, I'm going to jump into now. And you read forward and just be confused now, for a bit. Once in a while, if they if they reference something, but then there's also like the Marvelpedia. It's like the Marvel version of Wikipedia. They do a great job of identifying and explaining a lot of story arcs. So you can go into that and say, okay, I'm reading this one thing and they have referenced this other event, and you look that event up and it'll tell you in there, oh, this event was X-Men number 175 through 178 and the Wolverine special issue number 7. And that's, and then also a lot of times, at least for Comixology, and I'm sure it's similar for Marvel Unlimited, is that you can get those as collected issues. Yeah. So in some cases, it might have come out as a graphic novel. So it was actually physically published is one thing. But also digitally, if it wasn't physically published in one edition, and it happened to be like, this issue of Doctor Strange and that issue of Iron Man and that issue of Avengers, whatever, you can buy the collected edition for, of course, it depends on what it is. You might pay $12. You might pay $20. You might pay $30. There was me being on Comixology at like midnight is not a good thing. There was one night I dropped $100.
And really, that's kind of my argument for Marvel Unlimited, because a lot of that stuff,
I just kept
it's in there.
Buy.
You just have to know where to, how to find what you're looking for. Okay, I need these issues, but it's a lot cheaper if, and DC also has a similar thing. And DC is a little easier to hop in because you've got, the New 52, you've got Rebirth. But and Carrie in the chat room said sometimes there'll be a footnote in the issue as far as like where to reference other issues and cross stories and stuff. Comics. Oh, hey, two quick recommendations. One is a comic called Bone. It's by an old Disney animator, and it looks like a kid's book. I mean, it's family friendly, and it looks like, why would I possibly want to read this? But his animation background, it's by a guy named Jeff Smith. His animation background really brings an interesting visual, like the representation of the characters and the body language and stuff is incredible. And it gets to this big epic, almost like Lord of the Rings scope of story by the end of this series. The graphic novel for it's like this, it's like $40 or something, and it's like this thick. But you can get them collected digitally. It won like every Eisner Award that's ever existed. They were working on making an animated series out of it. They've made a couple of video games. It's incredible. The other thing I wanted to recommend is the IDW Transformers comics. Transformers More Than Meets the Eye, Transformers Robots in Disguise. They're very grown-up stories, the world building has been game changing. Like it's all of the classic Generation 1 Transformers, but not in that world. It takes place almost all on like Cybertron and other places, and it's so deep with world building, and the characters are all different. Like you've got different character profiles from the Transformers from the 80s, and now they've expanded all of them in different ways. Like there's kind of a mercenary group with Cup and Springer and Perceptor, the microscope. He used to be a scientist. Well, now he's like a former scientist, but he's a sniper now. You've got a couple that are like spies and things like that. Like it's Megatron is basically it's kind of like the cartoon one where he started out as kind of like a freedom fighter and it just got out of hand. The world building's incredible though. So if you're at all interested in Transformers, and I think that was available in Comixology Unlimited as well. I'd have to look that up, but they've got graphic novels, collecting all of the different things too.
And I have to admit, I haven't really jumped much into IDW because I know a lot of the stuff that they do is skews toward a younger audience. But
a lot of it does.
You said it's the stories for Transformers are
these are like adult, I don't know. My son wouldn't. He's 11, and he's into Transformers, and I wouldn't recommend them to him because he's not going to get a lot of the nuances, the character development, the more mature storylines.
Okay.
He might enjoy them a little bit. I don't know, but no, the psychological depth of the characters, the sociological things that are brought up. No, it's definitely grown up stories without question.
And I have thought about looking at that. Also, G.I. Joe, which when I was young, I tore through G.I. Joe Real American Hero.
Oh, the old Larry Hama stuff,
which was Marvel, and and now G.I. Joe has moved to IDW, which Marvel owns anyway. But I mean, I've been interested in it, and I thought it was kind of interesting that they moved it over there. That you've got a military comic that's with IDW, but I guess with what you're saying, I would then assume that it's kind of similar in that tone.
I haven't picked them up,
and maybe age
range.
But
it's my understanding is, again, it's very much more modern storytelling. And I think there are two lines. There's one that's a G.I. Joe, like a modern kind of reboot. And then there's one that actually picked up where the old series left off with like the next issue number. Yeah. And just continued that line.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't checked into those, right. But no, like what you said though, my understanding is that they are also more grown up versions of it. But yeah, but the Transformers stuff, like it blew me away at how the world building was and how it's not. I mean, kids can read it, but there's some some darker moments, some more violent moments, some characters that have some psychological issues. There's some, war-based trauma stuff. It's good stuff. Anyway, we should move along. I guess the only other thing I've got left is, I guess we're about done. I was going to bring up a couple of games. No Man's Sky, I found myself playing that quite a bit more recently. That game has completely changed. It was hated and loathed for a while because people felt like it didn't deliver what it promised when it came out. And there's some controversy around that too. I think that the whole story didn't really get out on whose fault it actually was with that. But anyway, that's another discussion for another time. It has come back, and it's come back hard. Like they've been doing free DLC updates, and they've completely changed the game. They've introduced multiplayer. They've introduced base building and freighters, and you can kind of have your own little fleet of things. The story, they've introduced some new story elements, and it's really good. So I would recommend people giving that another try. And the other thing is, I've always loved the Diablo games, and I also like Minecraft. the combination of the two, you get Minecraft Dungeons, and it is very, very, very true to Diablo, but isn't quite as complex. And yet, it is also still very complex. It's very much about a loot grind, and then you can upgrade your equipment with different enchantments that have different effects. So there's a lot of different like ways to design your. There's no class, but there are different ways to design your characters where you're using different types of strategies and tactics based on different types of enchantments and the synergies about how the enchantments work together or don't work together. And it's with some of the more recent content and the introduction of higher difficulty levels, it can be insanely difficult. Like you've really got to think about how you build your character out and what you're doing. But it's also very rewarding in the sense that you always feel like there's progression with the loot grind and all that.
Right.
It's inexpensive.
Are you building things like you do?
In fact, the original creator of Minecraft apparently
Minecraft
is kind of pissed off about the game. Yeah.
Oh, really?
He left Mojang Studios a while back when they sold it to Microsoft. So no, there's no crafting. It kind of holds true to like the world, but it's much more like if you were playing Minecraft in adventure mode and not really building anything. So it's really the gameplay. It's very Diablo-esque. Yeah. But it's good. It still holds true to the tone of Minecraft and all that. So, and it's great to just sit down and play for a few minutes and walk away from. You don't have to, you go, you do a mission or two and then you walk away. And then I guess finally, I didn't write this down, but Star Wars Squadrons. Really freaking good. Tim, we got to get you a game system. So,
you put a PS5 digital on a store shelf, and I'll have a game system.
Hey, that's
one
thing, and I'll talk to you about this later offline, Tim. But I am all for you getting a PS5. I would recommend if you ever decide to get the VR headset, though, to consider getting something else instead, and we'll talk about why later on.
Yeah.
But that's all I got.
So I've got two quick things that I kind of threw in the bucket of miscellaneous or other. One is Comic-Con at home.
Yeah.
So, San Diego Comic-Con, there were a few cons that did, basically virtual cons. But San Diego Comic-Con, they did it extraordinarily well with Comic-Con at home. And of course, this was them pre-recording panels with, all the panelists at home, wherever they were around the country, around the world, and, broadcast these things on a schedule on YouTube. And there were a lot of really, really great panels. Yeah. And I appreciated that they did this a lot. Some really good, entertaining things, some real informative things. No, of course, we didn't get like Hall H level kind of stuff, but there was still some really, really good content that they gave. I was appreciative of that. And then the other thing, which just happened, not too long ago, was Disney Investors Day.
That was a surprise.
And there was just, there was so much news that came out of that. There was so much content that we got, that we discussed across so many shows
and are still discussing.
Network. We talked, and we're still discussing. I mean, we've talked about it on RandomChatter. We've talked about it on Echo Base. We've talked about it on Guardians of the MCU. And we're continuing to talk about those things because they release so much information and so much news. And it's really charting so much of what's going to be happening over the next few years.
It's almost like they took D23, and San Diego Comic-Con, Star Wars Celebration, like all of these things they wanted to do throughout the year and couldn't, and just crammed all of that into 4 hours. Plus Disney itself and Pixar and Hulu and
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I watched it live. I kind of did a live blog of it in one of our Discord channels. and it was great, and it was really seriously engaging. You know, it had a lot of interest in a lot of that content, and it was fun
really
to
was.
watch. It was really fun to watch,
and it brought a level of excitement too. Like, no matter what you were into, if you were into any of those products from Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, Fox, any of that, you walked away excited about something. There was something in that 4 hours that you just couldn't wait to talk to somebody about. And if you're like a lot of our listeners and audience viewers here, probably a whole list of things, and you just didn't know what to talk about first.
Yeah.
It was,
I mean, it's like, the Marvel and the Star Wars stuff stand out quite a bit, but like, they're going to do an Alien series, Eric. I mean, holy crap. Like,
that's a big deal.
I was, if I was standing up, I would have fallen down. Like, that was huge. That was so exciting. I loved hearing that. So many good things that came out of that. That I'm just so stoked about.
And that's really, I think, a good place to wrap up this episode too, because it's a reminder we have a lot of good stuff coming in 2021. A lot.
So much.
We've got a lot to be excited for, and you know, wow, this is going to be a big year on our network as far as coverage goes. So many things.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to. I know you are as well. I know Lou. He had to duck out earlier than expected, but well, we're also running later than expected. But I know we're all excited. The whole network is looking forward to all the stuff coming in 2021. But I think, you know, there was a lot of good stuff from 2020 as well. And, you know, I'm glad we decided to do this, because looking back, there was a lot of good stuff here. There's a lot of stuff worth recommending.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one or two highlights out of this list, that you would be, listen, of all the things I listed, check out this, this, and this, what would it be?
Oh gosh.
And I would have asked Lou the same thing, except he had to take off. I'll tell you mine while you think.
Yeah.
So mine, absolutely without question, I would say Upload is worth checking out. And I would say, if you can handle like some darker drama, crime-based stuff, Ozark is really good. Mythic Quest is good for just something that's funny. Class Action Park is just, it is an insane 1.5 hour long documentary that just, you're just sitting there shouting at the screen like, what? I can't believe they did that. They got away with that. I would say those would probably be my biggest picks. And of course, every Mandalorian, everyone's going to say that. But of the other things, Upload, Ozark, Mythic Quest, Class Action Park, and maybe Snowpiercer.
Okay. Let's see. You know, I'm going to say out of movies, I think The Old Guard was probably like really the most exciting new thing that came out there. And it had some really solid competition. For shows, as you said, aside from The Mandalorian, gosh, it's tough. Upload is up there. And I think the Netflix Dracula series, really, really solid, really exciting. For animated stuff, I'm really looking forward to the continuation of Castlevania.
You've been raving about that for so long that you've almost got me convinced that I need to go check it out.
Yeah, you totally do. And it is very adult. Just to put that out there for everyone, a lot of the animated stuff on Netflix is very adult. So just, you know, but buyer beware. I mean, that's I would say those are the top things for me.
Well, I tell you what, everybody, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think were the best things to come out of 2020. Head into our Discord server. If you go to randomchatter.com/Discord, you can talk about it there. We've got a Random Chatter channel right there in the server. And you know what? I know some people are going to listen to this later on. They're going to get through the holidays before they go and catch up on podcasts or YouTube videos. And that's fine. Even if you scroll back and you see we already discussed it and we moved on to a different topic, I don't care. I'm telling you right now, hop in there and tell us anyway. I don't care if it's early January. I don't care if it's Valentine's Day. If you've got a list of things from 2020 that you think stood out and are really good and we haven't talked about it, let us know. That's what the Discord server is there for, is for you, not just us, but for you to come in and share the things that you found with the rest of us and to find things that other people have shared as well. So please, by all means, consider doing that. And then if you're there, if you've donated through our Patreon site, any amount at all, even if it's just $1 a month, be sure to let us know, because there's a section we've set up as a special thank you, a rather large section actually, of a lot of different topics and stuff that you'll get access to with a lot more great discussions going on. So for more information on that, go to randomchatter.com/Patreon. We also have randomchatter.com/store, where we've got some t-shirts and sweatshirts and stuff like that. We've got some bigger, there you go. Tim's sporting it right there. We've got some more things we're thinking about bringing over the course of 2021 as far as merchandise goes. So stay tuned for that. And then don't forget, if you're listening to this via audio, consider going to randomchatter.com/YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification button, and you'll find out when we're going live. We do stream these live. We've got a live chat. Tech is in chat right now saying happy holidays / Merry Christmas, gang. You too, Tech. Thank you for hanging out with us so often. And we've got a lot of regulars in the chat room there. We appreciate each and every one of you. So be sure to check out the YouTube channel as well. That's going to do it. Tim, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you, buddy.
And to everybody else out there, we are going to see you back here very, very soon. Whatever you're celebrating this year, we wish you the absolute best. Stay safe, and we will be back with you in a few weeks.